I found out my husband was traveling with another woman after 43 years of marriage, and what I did next changed my life forever. My name is Margaret, though most people just call me Maggie. I'm 72 years old now, and I've lived long enough to see life at its most beautiful and its most cruel. You see, love doesn't just fade with age, it burns quietly, like an old candle still fighting against the wind. That's how I used to think about my marriage. 43 years together. We raised children, built a home, and grew old side by side. Or at least that's what I thought. It started with small things: missed calls, late nights, a distance I couldn't explain. He, my husband, Thomas, used to bring me coffee every morning, but one day he stopped. He said he was busy, that his new business trips were wearing him out. I believed him, because that's what love does to you. It makes you trust, even when your heart whispers that something's wrong. Then came the night that changed everything. He said he was flying to Chicago for a conference. I packed his bags, kissed him goodbye, and told him to stay warm. But 2 days later, I got a message. It was from an old friend, someone who still worked at the airport. She said, "Maggie, I just saw Thomas. He wasn't going to Chicago. He was boarding a flight to Paris with a woman." My heart stopped. I remember sitting on the kitchen floor, holding the phone, feeling like the walls were closing in. Paris, of all places, the city we'd always dreamed of visiting together. I didn't cry at first. I just sat there, silent. Then, when night fell and the house grew quiet, I broke. I screamed into my pillow until my throat burned. 43 years. And he chose her. When he returned, he acted as if nothing happened. He hugged me, kissed my forehead, and said it was a tiring trip. I stared at him, wondering how someone could lie so easily to the face that once meant the world to him. For days, I said nothing. I cooked, cleaned, smiled, played the role of the loving wife. But inside me, something was breaking apart, piece by piece. Then one evening, I finally asked, "Thomas, how was Paris?" He froze, just for a second, but I saw it, the guilt, the shock. He tried to cover it up, said I must have misheard, but his voice trembled. That was all the confirmation I needed. That night, I sat alone in our bedroom and made a decision. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg or scream or throw things. No, I was going to make him feel what he made me feel, not with anger, but with silence, dignity, and strength. The next morning, the sun looked the same, but I wasn't. I stood in front of the mirror, searching for the woman I used to be, the woman who once smiled without pretending, who believed love could last forever. But the eyes staring back at me were tired, empty, broken. That was the day I made a promise to myself. If he couldn't value my love, then I would stop wasting it on him. I would give that love to myself. I walked into our bedroom, the same room where we once shared everything, and now it just smelled of betrayal. His shirts, his shoes, his suits, they all looked like ghosts of my trust. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "You chose Paris, Thomas. Now you can live without this life you took for granted." I began to gather everything. His clothes, his watches, his books, even his old record player he was so proud of. I packed it all neatly, one piece at a time, with hands that were steady and a heart that was finally learning to be still. The next day, I called a local dealer who bought secondhand items. He arrived with the truck, looked at the pile, and said, "Ma'am, do you really want to sell all of this?"
I smiled. Yes, everything. If it doesn't belong to my piece, it doesn't belong in my house. He nodded, loaded the boxes, and drove away. As the sound of the truck faded, I stood by the door feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Then I went back inside, opened the drawer where I had kept his old letters and anniversary cards. Every word that once made my heart flutter now felt hollow. I put them all in a small box, walked to the backyard, and burned them. The flames rose slowly, licking the edges of the paper, turning promises into ash. And for the first time, I didn't cry. I just watched my pain disappear into the sky. When he came home that evening, he looked around and froze. "Where are my things?" he asked, his voice sharp. I looked him straight in the eye and said calmly, "I sold them." He blinked, confused. "You what?" "Yes, Thomas, everything you left behind while chasing someone else. I didn't need reminders of your absence." He shouted, loud, angry, full of disbelief. "Are you insane?" I smiled softly. "No, Thomas. For the first time in years, I'm sane." He stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. And I just stood there, breathing deeply, realizing that silence can sometimes be the loudest answer of all. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. No tears, no waiting, no wondering where he was. The next morning, I brewed myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. The sun was gentle, the air warm, and the world peaceful. For the first time, I thought, maybe my life isn't over. Maybe it's just beginning. I pulled out an old journal from the drawer, one where I used to write my dreams. Visit Paris, start a garden, help other women find hope. I picked up my pen and wrote underneath, "Now I'll make those dreams come true. For me." I sold a few pieces of jewelry, saved some money, and walked to the community center nearby. When they asked why I was there, I said, "I want to teach sewing to women who've forgotten how strong they are." They looked at me surprised. "At your age?" I smiled. New beginnings don't need a young face, just a brave heart. And that's how my new life began. I was no longer Thomas's wife. I was no longer the woman he betrayed. I was Maggie, the woman who rebuilt herself from ashes. When I started teaching at the community center, I didn't know what to expect. The first day, only 2 women came, both younger than me, both carrying the same heaviness in their eyes that I once had. They didn't talk much at first. They sat quietly as I showed them how to thread a needle, how to mend fabric that had torn. It felt symbolic, like we were all mending parts of ourselves, one stitch at a time. Over the weeks, more women started coming. Some were single mothers, some were divorced, some were widows. Each had a story, a heartbreak, a reason for giving up, and somehow they found their way to me. We laughed, cried, shared tea, and dreams. I told them that sewing isn't just about fabric, it's about fixing what life tears apart. And little by little, I began to see their eyes sparkle again. And maybe mine did too. Months passed. The center turned into a small family.
a circle of women who supported each other. We started making handmade scarves, bags, and little crafts to sell at the local market. When we earned our first small profit, they surprised me by buying a bouquet of flowers. One of them said, "Miss Maggie, you gave us a reason to live again." I smiled, holding back tears. "No, my dear, you reminded me that life doesn't end with heartbreak. It restarts with hope." That night, as I walked home with those flowers in my hand, I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, God, for breaking me just enough to rebuild me stronger." Then, one evening, something unexpected happened. I was closing the center after class when I saw a familiar figure standing near the gate. My heart skipped a beat. It was Thomas. He looked older, weaker. The confident man I once knew was gone, replaced by someone tired, worn down, almost regretful. He smiled awkwardly and said, "You look good, Maggie." I didn't reply. He took a deep breath and added, "I've made mistakes. I thought I wanted freedom, but I was wrong. She left me, and I miss us." His voice trembled, but my heart didn't. I had spent too many nights crying for a man who never looked back, and now, when he finally did, I felt nothing but calm. I looked him in the eye and said, "Thomas, I loved you for most of my life, and maybe a part of me always will, but the woman who waited for you is gone. You left her behind the day you walked away." He lowered his head, tears forming in his eyes. "Maggie, please." I shook my head gently. "No, Thomas, I don't hate you, but I've learned to love myself more than the idea of us." He stood there, silent. The air between us was filled with all the words we'd never said. Then he whispered, "You've changed." I smiled softly. "Yes, finally." He left quietly, and I watched him go, the same way I once watched him leave for Paris. But this time, there were no tears, just peace. That night, I sat by my window again, the same spot where I once broke down. But now I didn't see darkness. I saw the lights of the city, the laughter of children playing outside, the stars shining like promises. I realized something. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the pain. It's about remembering who you were before the pain and becoming her again, stronger. And that's what I did. Many years have passed since that day my world fell apart. My hair is completely white now. My hands are lined with wrinkles, but my heart has never been stronger. I still go to the community center every week. There are dozens of women there now, some young, some older, but all with light shining in their eyes. We laugh, sew, and share each other's burdens. Sometimes someone asks me, "Maggie, how did you survive? How did you become so strong?" I smile softly and reply, "I wasn't born strong. I broke, I cried, I fell, and then I put myself back together. Life gave me pain, but I learned how to live through it." One day, a young woman came to me. Her eyes carried the same sadness I once carried. She whispered, "Maggie, my husband left me too. What should I do?" I took her hand and said, "First, hold yourself. Cry if you must, but then wipe your tears and stand tall. You're not finished just because someone left. You are reborn the moment you decide to rise." She smiled, and for a second, I felt like I was speaking to my younger self, the Maggie I used to be. Life is strange, isn't it? Sometimes you lose everything and think the story's over.
But the real story begins when you find yourself again. I often sit in my garden with a cup of tea. The scent of flowers, the gentle breeze, and a heart at peace. I realize now that I never truly lost. Sometimes I wonder if Thomas had never left, I might never have discovered who I truly was. Sometimes life breaks you so that it can show you your real strength. Now my life carries no anger, no hatred, only gratitude. I forgave him and myself because I finally understood love begins with yourself. And if someone leaves you, don't think it makes you weak. No, perhaps it was your chance to be free. So if you are listening to this story and your heart is broken, remember this. Pain never comes to destroy you. It comes to create a stronger version of you. Believe in yourself, rise, rewrite your dreams. And when life asks, "Who are you now?" smile and say, "I am the one who won herself after losing everything."
Sometimes life breaks us, only to rebuild us stronger. If you believe in second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of courage and hope.